Mr. Transformers 96 Earth on the video review. This time we have a 3A product, and it is from the Bumblebee movie in the deluxe scale line, Blitzwing. Very excited about this one. This was a figure that I was super happy about when they first showed it, because I never expected this one to actually happen. This is a character that was not the main villain from Bumblebee. He only has one fight scene in Bumblebee at the very beginning, before he dies, and that was it. So I never expected to get much merchandise from Blitzwing whatsoever, let alone from 3A, who's incredibly selective when it comes to the characters that they make. But I couldn't be any happier about this. Out of all of the Autobots in the movie, like such as Shatter, Dropkick, and Blitzwing, Blitzwing would probably be the one that I'd want the most from them anyway. So I am extremely happy to finally be able to get this figure. I pre-ordered it the day that it went on pre-order, and I ordered it directly from 3A, and they didn't notify me at all when this thing was shipped or anything like that. So just one day I got home and it was waiting for me, and I had no idea it was even on the way. So it was a fantastic surprise, and I'm incredibly happy to get the figure. So let's take it out of the package and go over what you get. So here's Blitzwing out of package, looking amazing, I must say. Definitely extremely happy with this figure, and I think that this line is wonderful. I do have one of the other previous 3A figures in their larger scale, being Starscream, which is very similar to Blitzwing, obviously, but I do have Starscream, and I really love that figure. I think it looks fantastic, and it's so accurate in its design that it's just incredible. However, I think that this is the superior line as opposed to the larger scale. Let's just get into it right now before I go into the details of this figure, but I do think that this is a better line. I think that the scale is quite nice. It's almost in a Hot Toys scale, which I think is very cool, and considering I consider 3A the Hot Toys of Transformers, I think that it fits quite nicely in the scale. It's a good scale. It's large. It's not like your typical Hasbro scale, so it's bigger. It feels, more collectible wise. And yet it still is big enough to get a lot of great detail in there and to have it look incredibly well crafted. However, it's not too large where it's difficult to display, or there's only certain places that you can display it, and it being the larger something is, the harder it is to kind of pose, and the more intimidating it is to mess with. This is still at a scale where it's fun to pose and to mess with, and everything like that, as well as it allows the price point to be more reasonable, and they have a die-cast skeleton within them, which makes these figures incredibly sturdy feeling and heavy as well. So just in my opinion, I am absolutely in love with this deluxe scale line. I just recently purchased Bumblebee finally, and I couldn't be any happier with it. I'm incredibly happy with this one, and I was not planning to get Optimus Prime, but now after getting these two figures, Optimus Prime is a must-have for me, so I have him on pre-order now. So I'm just incredibly happy with this line. It is very strange that they are doing this line simultaneously with the premium scale one, which is just like the other ones where it's the larger scale, at a little bit more than, not just a little bit more than double the price, which, I think they certainly look good. But I will say that for most people, if you show them a picture of this one or a picture of the bigger one, you can't quite tell which it is. You really do have to read the pictures to see if it says deluxe or premium. So that's really the only way that you can even tell, for the most part, which you're looking at, because the detail is pretty on par with both of them, it seems. It's a little odd that they're making like the same characters in both scales, because there's obviously this one, which is a deluxe scale figure, and then they do have a premium scale Blitzwing coming as well. So it's just kind of odd that they're continuing that line. But nonetheless, let's get into the actual figure and talk about some of the details. So overall, I think the face sculpt is fantastic. You have a tremendous amount of detail going on there, and absolutely representing his look in the film. I do like the fact that his eyes are red. Sometimes with light-up figures that have like light-up eyes, they make the eyes just like the shade of red that they use is very dark, because it's a clear, translucent piece that obviously looks really great when it's lit up, but when it doesn't have the lights on, it doesn't look good, and it just kind of looks dead inside. This is not the case, though. He totally looks fantastic without the lights on, which is really nice. Just going over the detail of the rest of the figure. It's tremendous. They've added a nice weathering to it. He's not like all scratched up, but he feels dirtier. He feels a little bit more grimy, which I think is really cool. And what's nice is the detail of that kind of a grimy look runs throughout the entire figure. It's not something that's just in certain places, which is really nice. One thing that I found it difficult to find a good place to grab him when I first got him out of package, just because there's so many panels and everything on him that you don't want to mess with, you don't want to break anything. So to find a good like anchor point to kind of hold him by, I take like this point down here. This point I find to be a good spot to grab him by, as well as just from the back, like right here, that's very sturdy. I will say that it does come with 2 extra pieces. Let me grab those. That are meant to be attached there. They're not attached when you get them out of package, but they are supposed to be attached. They're these pieces. They're very easy to attach. They just attach onto here, and yeah, they look good. However, with those on, there's just like no good places to grab him where there's any kind of where you're not worried about breaking a panel. So I just opted not to display them, just so that I could be able to hold them better, and it doesn't like affect the look of the figure whatsoever without those. So I don't mind that one bit. But overall, I think it's fantastic. One thing that I found interesting is that the wheels on the bottom of his foot, they are actual wheels, so you can spin them, which is interesting. Didn't expect that, but still, nonetheless, it's cool that he does have it. Overall, looking really cool. I like his design in the movie quite a bit. It's obviously Starscream. Like, I wish that they either painted him his colors from the original kind of G1 look, where it's like the tan and the purple, and then call him Blitzwing, or just paint him like this and call him Starscream. I find it very annoying that he's neither. It's really annoying because it's such a simple fix, you know. I hate things when it's just like really annoying because it's so simple to fix it. Because either change the name or change the color, either of them is very easy to do. So it would have been much better. But nonetheless, if you want to just think of this guy as Starscream, you could totally do that. It really doesn't affect him. I think that it totally fits to just call him Starscream if you want to. Let's go over his accessories and then we can do some articulation. So here's the selection of hands that come with Blitzwing. You get 3 pairs of hands. You get a pair of fists, a pair of relaxed palms, and then a pair of opening gesture hands, which I think are very cool. One unique thing about his hands is that he has extremely pointy fingers, which is why I kind of tend to display him with the open gesturing hands. I just think it's quite neat to showcase those fingers. I think they look quite cool. And then the other one that's more unique, that can also be considered a weapon, is his little like voice box extractor, whatever you want to call it. Let's see, they call it an electron spike blade. That's what they call it. So that's obviously the weapon that he uses to disable Bee's voice box, because obviously Blitzwing is the person that does take Bee's voice, which is kind of neat and makes him kind of like a very unique, or at least a very memorable Decepticon, because of his disabling of a very important feature from Bumblebee that the effect we'll see from the Shia LaBeouf movies, obviously, years to come. So overall, I do think it's quite neat. It does attach to the arm just like any of the other hands here, with just the ball joint of the wrist pops right in there. One thing that I find interesting is that you can really kind of see his hand. You can kind of see how that transforms, where he does still have his hand available. That's something that I didn't quite notice in the film, but you can clearly see figure-wise, which I think is very cool. These are all very easy to interchange, which is nice. The only exception to that is the blade. It's a little bit tighter on mine, so you do need some more force to get it on, but you can absolutely connect it. It does definitely work. That's one thing that I'm also noticing with these 3A figures, which is just really nice, is that they're very easy to work with. They seem to, like, all the hands on him and Bumblebee attach really easily. There's not a whole lot of stress whatsoever. There's not a lot of pushing. Interchangeable, like cannon arms, pretty easy to put on. The heads are incredibly easy to pop off, and to put the batteries in and everything is extremely easy. Just like, these figures are really easy to work with. And Hot Toys, I have to say, there's some times where you definitely struggle with getting a piece on or something like that. But that's something that the 3A figures actually don't seem to have an issue with, which is really great. And here he is with the Null Ray Blaster on. Does look very cool. It's a nice big accessory. It's his biggest accessory. And as you can see, it looks really nice. It goes up until the elbow of the arm, so you do have to entirely replace the arm to be able to put it on, but it looks quite good. I do like the detailing in it quite a bit, and he does use it in the film and in a decent part of the fight sequence that he's in, which is quite nice. It does have 2 missiles attached to it, which I think look pretty cool. Those missiles are detachable. You'll actually have to put them on out of package, so you can use those if you want to make it look like he just fired one or something like that, or even just if you're doing like stop motion videos with this, it would be really cool to be able to remove it and, you know, have it flying over towards Bumblebee. So overall, I think it looks quite neat. A little light in the front of it would make it better, but it's completely unnecessary. I don't really, you know, I wouldn't really care for that much, but that's the only thing I can think of to improve it. Overall, I think it does look great. And as far as how easy or difficult it is to interchange it, taking his arm off is pretty easy. However, putting this one on is a little bit stiffer, but you can totally do it. And obviously, it's a metal peg, so you don't have to worry about breaking the peg at all, which is really nice. That's definitely a very comforting, peace of mind wise. So that's great. He does have, let's see here. Okay, he does have on the actual arm here, this little panel is attached to it, and it does say to be very careful about it scratching. If you have his arm just completely straight, there's no problem whatsoever. It's when you start to rotate the arm a bit at the connection point where this could scratch. So as long as you align it straight, you don't have any issue with it. So just be cautious about that when you are attaching it. But overall, do definitely like this accessory. It looks great, and happy it comes with it. Alright, he does also come with a base. That's another thing that kind of separates this line from the larger premium scale. The premium ones do not come with bases. The deluxe ones do come with bases. I like the base. I think that it's quite cool. It has definitely an electronic type of feel to it. It looks nice. It has a Bumblebee logo as well as a ThreeA logo. The only difference between his and Bumblebee's base is that the coloring on the logo is red. There's nothing that says Blitzwing on it. Would have been cool if this nameplate here was like chrome and said Blitzwing or something like that. That would be neat. But nonetheless, it's not any issue. You might be wondering if this is a larger base than Bumblebee's, because Blitzwing is a much larger figure than Bumblebee, and that is not the case. They're exact same size, which I like, just because it makes them a little bit more unified. The whole back support system is a really interesting design. I like this quite a bit, but it's obviously a port here that has a hinge that allows it to go up and down, and it has this extendable piece which can be locked in here, especially if you want to do flight poses. That's what you can do, as well as you can adjust the size of this. You simply lock this up, and that'll allow you to rotate it. And then if you get it in a good spot, you just lock it down, and then it won't be able to move anymore. So I think that that's a pretty clever design. I'm quite a fan of that, and yeah, I think it's quite neat. Then the top section here, this is the section that just plugs right into the figure. It literally plugs right into him, and the way that you adjust this is you take out the whole piece, get it to the position that you want, and then you just pop it back in, and that locks it. As well as it is able to extend, where you just push this down and it allows you to pull it all up, and then if you're not pressing that piece anymore, it won't be able to go down if you just try to move it down. You do have to be pressing it down, and then it'll allow you to go down. So I definitely like the posability of this flight stand. I think it's quite neat, and it allows for some good poses, and the way that it locks in place is quite clever, and therefore makes him very stable when he's on it, which is nice. Alright, now to go over articulation. He's incredibly well articulated. He has a ball-jointed neck, which allows you to look up quite far, down, tilt side to side, everything like that, quite well articulated. He has the shoulder pieces, the vents do go up themselves, actually, so they have some range to them. And then the shoulders have a hinge, which allowed the arm to rotate up this much, as well as it does have a little panel here that can be extended so that you can get even more motion. So that's basically as high as it goes up, which is incredibly far, I must say. And then this little piece is on a hinge itself, so that can be rotated, and he can obviously be able to rotate his arm up. He has a swivel at the bicep, as well as a double hinge elbow, which can hinge about that much, which is quite a bit longer or more extreme than 90 degrees, which is great. He has a ball-jointed wrist. His torso is able to crunch forward. You can lift this piece to give him some extra room there, but let's see here. It's a little hard to actually, there's just, like I was mentioning, there's not a whole lot of places to grab him. So it can be difficult to find a spot that you can grab him where he feels sturdy and you're able to rotate him. So it crunches abs just a little bit, but not a whole lot. And then as far as the side-to-side movement with the torso, there's not a ton there, but he does have a bit of range. When it comes to the thighs, he has ball hinge thighs, which this is something that's an improvement on the Bumblebee figure. The Bumblebee figure does not have this good of range, but he can go out extremely far, as well as he can kick up, and this piece can move out of the way quite a nice amount as well. So as you can see, he can really kick up extremely far. Bumblebee could kick up, but he really couldn't extend his leg out very much. He does have a double hinge knee, which allows a full collapsal, which looks great. And then his ankles have to be extended forward, so you do have to pull them down to get the range, but he does have an ankle pivot, which works really nicely, and then it can go forward as well as back. So the articulation is quite good. Overall, I think this figure is extremely well articulated. It has, if you have the Bumblebee figure, it's basically articulated in the same range, or in the same places. However, I think the range is better on Blitzwing, just because their shoulder, the paneling on Bumblebee is a little bit more restrictive when it comes to the shoulders. You do have to really pay attention when you move his shoulders. However, with this one, that's not the case. You know, you do have to pay attention, but there's nothing that restricts it, considering the wings at the back here are also on hinges, so you can move them completely out of the way if you wanted, and therefore there's no restrictions whatsoever. So that helps, as well as the fact that the thighs do not have any restrictions going out, which the Bumblebee one, they did absolutely have a restriction going out. So that is not the case on this one, which is quite good, I must say. Let's do a size comparison between him and Bumblebee. Alright, here's Bumblebee compared to Blitzwing. These are obviously both 3A figures and both in the same scale of deluxe class. Overall, I think that they look really good together. I've seen a lot of complaints about the size of Blitzwing, that he's not big enough. And personally, he might be a little bit smaller than he is in the movie compared to Bumblebee. There's obviously a great shot of these two together in the movie where Blitzwing is choking Bumblebee and holding him up, and they do a full wide shot where you can see both characters fully. So when you look at that and you look at the figures, yeah, he's a little bit too small, just a bit. But to be honest, I think that the scale is quite good. Otherwise, it might not be 100% perfect, but I think it's pretty solid, to be honest. I don't personally have any problems with it. He feels very big on his own, and I think that's kind of one of the most important things. So I think that the scale here between the two of them is quite good in my opinion, and I think fits even if it's not 100% accurate. Overall, I think this is a fantastic figure. I absolutely love it, to be honest. I'm really enjoying this new scale. I think that it's detailed wonderfully. I think that the sculpts are fantastic, and I think that they feel extremely sturdy. Having the die-cast skeleton allows the figures to really feel extremely sturdy, and they can hold a pose extremely well because of the joints are all die-cast. They're very sturdy, and I don't have an issue leaving them in an extreme pose just because they feel really sturdy, and that's great. That's something with figures that it's not fun to get a figure that doesn't feel sturdy. And I will say Hot Toys figures sometimes have a little bit more of a gentle type of appearance where you feel like you have to baby them a lot more. So these figures have the detail of Hot Toys, yet they do not have the worry of Hot Toys, and therefore they're just a lot more fun in general, and I think that they're just great figures. I would highly recommend this. If you're trying to decide between the two scales, between the premium scale and the deluxe scale, I personally think that the deluxe scale is better. Now, the only reason that I would totally recommend the premium scale is if you have all of the other Transformers from 3A, so you have them all in that scale already, and you just kind of want to add to that collection, then I totally understand it, and I'd recommend the premium ones. It's just to have them all unified. I think that would look good. However, I think that the deluxe scale is just better in every way. I think the die-cast skeleton makes them feel very sturdy. They're in a scale that's more manageable, where you feel like you can pose them easier. There's just more places that you can display them. I like the fact that they come with bases, so they look more unified, and they look more, they look like a little bit of a higher class of figure, as well as it's a good size anyway. It's quite large too. And then I think that the price, I think, is really reasonable on these guys. I don't say that often. You know, a lot of times I think that the figures are just overpriced. But with this scale, I think it's pretty reasonable. Bumblebee's $145, Blitzwing is $200. I think the fact that he is $55 more expensive, he's 25% more expensive than Bumblebee, and I think that you get 25% more of a figure, if not even more than that, to be honest. He's a lot bigger, and there's just a little bit more going on with him as well. So I definitely think that you get the extra money from this figure that you do with Bumblebee at the price difference. And I also think that Bumblebee is well priced too. I think $145 for that figure, it's a great figure, to be honest. You know, I could definitely, I think even more, like, Bumblebee I could see being 180, and I'd still think that he was a fair price. So I'm quite happy with this line. I think the prices are reasonable, and I think that the products are impeccable. Really don't have any issues with them, which is great. And that's the reason I'm going to get Optimus Prime. I don't really need an Optimus Prime from the Bumblebee movie in my collection. However, this line is so good and it's so much fun that I absolutely want another figure, and Optimus is the other figure in the line, so I'm all for it. I do hope that they continue the series. I'd love to see them go and do some of the other Transformers films, like the Michael Bay films, in this scale as well. That would be really cool. And there's a ton of figures that I'd love to see them make. However, if they're not going to do that and they're going to continue with the Bumblebee line, Shatter and Dropkick I would love to see in the line as well. So let me know what you guys think of this line as well as this figure, Blitzwing, and thanks so much for watching.